Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Tim and Tim Talk. This is a continuation. I'm not doing this alone. I have my fantastic and amazing co-host, Tim Kerbavaz. Why did I try? I almost said your name wrong, and I caught myself.
You caught yourself that time. And it's a good thing we're catching ourselves, Tim. We are going on a deep dive this episode. We've been deep. We're going deeper. Get your diving helmet on because we're going to get some nitty gritty in this one.
We're going into it. And you know what? This whole episode is about sort of catching ourselves and putting systems in place that make sure the production is seamless. But let's also make sure, Tim, if you, our fellow audience, is this is your first episode, please do us a favor. This is so hard for me to say, Tim, but let's tell them to stop and back it up.
Right.
Because episode number 1, we explained the big picture about what we're doing and the choices that we make. Tim, what did we talk about after episode 1?
Then we talked about what happens inside the studio control room. And we should say this is for Google I/O, developer conference, remote production from our studio here.
100%
your studio
virtual.
In San Francisco. And so we're looking at last episode, what happens in that control room? What are all these key positions in that control room?
Not control room, control rooms.
Rooms, right, multiple. Plural. We had multiple. And so now we're looking at, with those multiple control rooms, what happens when this video is leaving that control room before it hits YouTube? And so we're going to talk a little bit about some various steps and pieces in between that make that stream to YouTube happen.
Well, you really just, give credit to that various steps. I mean, this was an intricate masterpiece because this is essentially, you designed a bespoke system here that was absolutely a masterpiece. Dare I say your piece de resistance of live streaming engineering was accomplished there. So Tim, like you said, right? So we had hundreds of live streams. Those were distributed amongst, roughly about a dozen product channels. On a typical live stream, we send to one channel and that's it. It's a set and forget. But this was not the case in this one.
No, we had, these studios doing multiple events over day and night. And as we said last time, starting and stopping the stream each session, essentially, and then restarting it to a different, not even a different YouTube event, but a different YouTube channel.
So let's talk about the logistical challenge of that, because essentially, as we discussed earlier, the director needs to push that now to a brand new stream key. So how many tasks is the director already doing? Probably like 10 different things: quality control and making sure that it's the right video, making sure that they're following the action. So now they have to start and stop and push to a new stream key, Tim.
Right.
That was a recipe for disaster. How did we prevent that?
It was going to be a really big problem. And certainly we have some checks and balances. We have our checklist. We have our producer who's double checking. But really that challenge of having to change stream keys every single session was really going to slow things down and lead to so many problems. So the solution that we came up with was to use those cloud tools that we mentioned in the first episode. So we had this on-prem solution in these physical control rooms, but we still took advantage of cloud distribution tools to both manage and monitor those streams. So we took the streams from the control rooms and pushed them up to a distribution system in the cloud where we were monitoring the stream from every studio. And our directive to the room producers and directors was, leave your encoders on. You're always streaming to our system, to our monitoring system. And then that monitoring and distribution system pushes the stream to all of the various stream keys for all the various product channels. So we basically built a matrix where any studio could go to any product channel at any time.
So let's stop that. And that is such, essentially that is the golden ticket right there. So the control rooms never, ever stopped streaming, even though they were streaming to just a plethora of different channels.
Right. So where they started and stopped streaming was actually in the YouTube interface. And so the beauty of this is that, the final point that really matters, the final start and stop button, is that YouTube control room interface. And so we had the in-room director and producer double check, triple check that they were on the right event, ready to go, press that start button at the end, press the stop button. But they never changed the encoder settings. So they're always pushing to our system in the cloud that manages and distributes that to the various rooms. And then they just receive that in the correct YouTube control room.
It's really interesting in the sense that even though they're the ones pushing it, it still needs to hit that metric. It still needs to do that routing. And we were, let's be honest, a little nervous about this solution because this is we have known no other production company to ever try this. This is really, I would say, a one of a kind because it's such a unique problem. Tools don't exist for this. We essentially had to put together different cloud-based solutions to make this work. Also, let's show some pictures about, of how that looked. And you can see, Tim, of how the world looked like.
Right. And so this was our master control station, right? Where the engineer in charge, this was me during the nights and your colleague Jeff during the days, who were really, monitoring all of the studios all at once and making sure that we had the right video coming out of the studio and then going to the right place. And so what we had here was a bunch of different tools and technologies to monitor and route the video. And so one of the things we had was, a dashboard that showed us a live NDI feed from the control room. So each control room had an NDI feed on our local network in the studio, so we could see in real time what was happening in the studio. Then we had a way of monitoring as it hit our distribution network, what was going where. And so we could see from any of the 5 different distribution points, we could see, making sure the right video was in the right place. And then we were based on the dashboard.
Let me pause you real quick and jump in. So, because, as we give tips and tricks to, other productions that may be interested in doing this, is if you plan on distributing NDI, throughout your facilities, as we have, you need to make sure that you're putting in the right network infrastructure. So in particular, we have a 10 gigabit master switch. We also have each port being capable of being a 1 gigabit. So you need to make sure you have the throughput to be able to distribute the signals without crashing the system.
Totally.
Otherwise, you're going to get stuttery video. So you have to have the right framework in place.
And NDI is very network intensive, and it really requires, as you said, a good backbone to the network. And so we did have that, thankfully, and we had routed essentially these various monitoring points throughout the building. And there's actually some others we'll talk about in a few minutes. But we have the ability to monitor in the building. We have the ability to monitor as it hits the internet, and then we had those dashboards, those documents that we talked about last episode, where we really had a mechanism to see direct links to where the video was supposed to be. And so in addition to the director and producer in each room, double checking that the links and the stream keys and the event were correct, the engineer in charge in the master control room was monitoring all the outputs of all the studios and the events that all the studios were in to make sure they were hitting the right event at the right time.
And this was just essentially one last extra layer of safety because you had the director, you had the producer cross-checking to make sure the information was correct. So, and I believe that, stop me if I'm wrong, I don't think we had one time where, yourself or Jeff had to jump in and say, oh no, the wrong stream is going to the wrong channel because these systems were in place.
Right. And those checklists really did their job. One of the things that we kind of didn't mention, and this is my fault here, I really should have said this earlier, one of the tools that we had inserted in that cloud production workflow, that stack of technologies that we built up, was for captioning. So one of the requirements that Google has is that all their events have live captions, and these are I should say,
and we're happy that they do. This is
really, and this is a great.
Every event should have this as a bare bones.
And I want to say these are human generated captions. This is not using Google's speech to text technology. This is really a live person using stenographic, typing to live type up the video. Let's
talk about
as it happens.
The use case, right? Because YouTube can, if there's certain parameters, they're always changing of when YouTube can generate AI captions. What we typically find where the state of where the captions are now is that it's not the strength is not there when it comes to sort of technical discussions and talks.
Right.
If you're having a standard fireside chat, they're acceptable at best. But if and when you can use human captions, somebody to transcode that, definitely use the human.
The challenge is, the AI has gotten so much better, even in the last couple of years, and I think it's really important to have captions. So if the only option you have is to use AI, I think definitely use that. The challenge is particularly for high profile events, the kinds of things that the AI gets wrong is people's names, your product name or your company name, and has the risk is that the AI puts words in your CEO's mouth and they say something in the captions that they didn't really say.
And it doesn't even have to be the CEO. It could be, just anybody that is a representative of the company.
Right. And so the challenge is, there's sort of the AI has no accountability, right? It hears what it hears. At least with human captioning, there's a person who has the better judgment to say, well, I don't think they really said that. I better not type that, right? And so having that kind of extra filter. And so with this, we had this, team of human captioners who were also remote, right?
You say the word team, Tim, but I think can we more accurately describe it as a small army of captioners?
A small army. We had all these captioners. And again, it was overnight. We had captioners during the day. We had captioners overnight. They were in different time zones working across the globe across the clock to get this content transcribed. So we have this cloud system in this stack of tools where the video goes before it hits the YouTube channels. It hits this system that takes the audio from the video, sends it to the captioner's headphones, where they type up the audio as they hear it in real time, 200-300 words a minute, send that text stream back to us in our system. It gets added to the video as a data stream and then sent to YouTube to be displayed in the player.
So if you're confused at this point, don't worry. It is a complex system. So basically, we're starting and stopping the stream all of the time. And on top of that, Tim, you're now saying that we had to have unique captioners. Every session essentially had a different captioner that then had to latch on to the correct stream.
Right. And so we've got this matrix of tools and technologies that take the streams from these studios, bring them into a system, add the captions, send them to all of the product channels, and make sure they're going to air in the right channel at the right time. And so that's where
no biggie, right? Work every single time.
No, exactly. So yeah, no big deal. We did make it work. It was really great. We a testament to the crew following the process, right? That we had a process, we tested, we worked it. Everybody followed the process. Those checklists really worked, and making sure that documentation, communication made it happen. And so, we had all those screens in that master control room that were letting us, me and Jeff, monitor all these various tools and technologies, all these various points of monitoring all at the same time.
Yep.
The other thing we had in the master control, and I don't know if we really mentioned this before, but when we talked about cloud production and we moved to on-prem, we did actually still have one studio effectively in the cloud. And that was essentially a last minute ad. And it was really, we talked about scalability. The advantage of the cloud is we could sort of just turn stuff on, right? And so we had a request to have a constant stream of some interstitial content on essentially the lobby of the event, the homepage of the event. And so we spun up a remote software tool that let us stream a social wall and some interstitial music and some content to the lobby of the event. And that was running for 24/7 for like 4 days.
And the
5
nice
days,
thing
maybe.
is, please go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead. The nice thing, right?
The nice thing, was that we can now distribute this workload to engineers, throughout the country, throughout the world. So there's always somebody that was assigned and dedicated to this. And because it wasn't as involved as our inbound A or B station, and it was a much more truncated, solution that they had to do. It was very good, and it's very simple to have. Hey, and we had engineers, I believe, in Georgia and Florida to really help in and jump in and help us out.
And the thing with this was it was running 24/7. So the other studios were running overnight, but there were dark periods where we sent the crew home to sleep. And this interstitial content had to run continuously for the whole run of the show. And so it meant that even when we've locked the doors and set the alarm in the studio to let everyone go home for a bit, we still had to make sure this was going live. And so having that come from a cloud tool that our teams remotely could monitor and log into and fix. And even, I got a call that something had gone wrong, and I was sleeping. I was working the night crew, so I was sleeping during the day. I got a call, at noon, and I got up, pulled up my laptop, logged in to fix the problem, and went back to sleep. And so that was something where,
and that's when you're using the right tool, right? That's when you can when is it right to have cloud and when is it right to have on-prem? And I feel like we made the correct choices, and the proof was in the pudding because, every single session hit its target with the bullseye, which is a huge undertaking. And, but also, amazing credit to the Google Events team and, making this job a success because they were just so good at their job. It's really great working with professionals through and through.
Absolutely. And one thing we didn't talk about is, this is streaming to YouTube, and YouTube obviously is going to have an archive, but we also had to provide recordings of the sessions, of
Yeah.
every single session. And we had to provide recordings like immediately. We had a really quick turn because they were trying to edit any disfluencies out of the recording and immediately post those to replace the online version. And so we were looking at, trying to target like turnaround within the hour of getting this content out and online. And so, our traditional record workflow would be, a hardware recorder in each studio, recording, high quality, broadcast quality recordings on a deck. And we did that, but we needed a way to get faster turnaround recordings, both recorded but also quality checked and then handed off to the client immediately. What do we do there, Tim?
Well, yeah, I mean, so like you said, so you can see behind me, we have built-in hardware recorders and we use those, and essentially those became the backup. But by now having a dedicated record op, they did a great job of being another level of continuity. So essentially, they listened to each program. They have a switch at their station where they listen to essentially the 4 different studios and bouncing between them. They could also start and stop the records, because all of these signals are now coming in over NDI through the network to their station. So essentially, they had a walkie-talkie where they could speak to you, they could speak to Jeff. Hey, do you mind go ahead and checking out Studio 2? But really, what they did was just giving confidence that another layer, that the content was it was streaming, it looked good, and it sounded good.
So they were another pair of eyes, both during the recording, but also afterward, where they would take those files that they were recording. Again, over the NDI network, we're talking about those cloud tools, those software tools, those digital tools that we're using. NDI is one of those digital tools, technologies that we're using to distribute this video throughout the building. So in addition to monitoring it in the master control, the record op is taking those feeds, monitoring them, recording them. When the recording is done, clipping that record, double checking it to make sure that it really is the quality that we expect, and then immediately transferring that over the internet to the client.
Absolutely.
And as you said, if there was a problem, go ahead. Yeah.
If there was, we're going to the same path. We're going to the same studio. If there was a problem, there's always that hard drive record. And we did have 1 or 2 hiccups, where we actually had to go to the hard drive for various reasons. And so we're super glad that we had it. And it's all, you can't make the show again, essentially. So it's all about having redundancies and backup plans.
It was a truly live show. Everything we were doing was fully live. And so indeed, having those backup plans, we actually had a third backup record tucked away just in case we needed it. And so, just having that level of redundancy. And it enabled, essentially a second set of eyes. That record op was the backup to that engineer in charge to, make sure that the product we're handing to the client really is ready to go.
And I think that, my last note on this is it's really, really important to have a set of eyes in it that is not in the control room, that is removed from all of the excitement and the conversation and the energy of the control room. So they can just focus on this, and they are essentially the truest viewer representative at that moment, because they have zero control over adjusting any audio video. So they are your best, they're your best asset for a large scale live stream of this.
Just reporting what happened as it happened. And, Tim, speaking of as it happened, I think we have a lot of other things that we can take away from this as lessons learned.
There was a lot as it happens that
we've talked a lot this episode. I think we should make that another episode. I guess that's a 4th one now. And so I'd like to move on. But before we go, want to thank you all for watching. Want to say, if you're finding this valuable, we'd love it if you could share this with your colleagues, friends, clients, network. And, if you have questions for us, hit us up on the socials and put those on screen. For those of you listening, it's at Tim and Tim Talk on all of the platforms. And with that, I think we better say goodbye.
Awesome. Well, my name is Tim Kay.
And I'm Tim Kerbavaz, and we talked. Thanks, folks.